Hey, what's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. I've got a harness out of 2000 and I think it's a 20 or a 21 Husqvarna 500 FE. This bike is going to be racing the Baja 1000, and we're doing a complete investigation of it. We're doing a wiring upgrade. We're adding some lighting capabilities and accessory power capabilities to it. And so one of the things that we do on a really thorough and exhaustive investigation on an electrical system is pull the harness off the bike. So here's the complete harness, and we're going to inspect every single junction, all the connectors. Let's spread this out. We could start back here, maybe with the ECU. This is the ECU connector, and there's some likely things that may happen to these that are necessary to pay attention to. You'll see that in the back of this, there's a couple of little dummy plugs. And so the first thing we want to do is just check and make sure that if there are any empty slots, they have that proper dummy plug. That's this little red thing right here. And so you're going to look for any that are missing, and they all look to be intact. Then we want to see if there's any obvious problems with the back plate. So there's a little, it's just an assembly here where the back of the wires go into, and it kind of sits inside of the outer shell, and we want to verify that that's all pressed down in there. Another thing we'll do is a pin drag test, and so we've got a terminal that is the same dimension as the ECU pin, and we'll insert that into each one of the little cavities, and we want to make sure that it goes in smooth, and then that there's a certain amount of drag to it, and they all should be the same. If you find any that don't have the same equal drag, then that one's going to need some attention. But we'll just go and insert that into every single one. You just get the idea there, looking for drag. And the feel of the drag really is just, the main thing is that they're the same. And it's almost like using feeler gauges to check valve clearance. You sort of need that little deft touch. Now that one was almost nothing, and that's an empty slot. So you're going to be aware that if you have any empties, you won't have any drag. So that's how you'll do all of those. Now I've got this other little tool. This is something that I think we must have picked up on Amazon, and there's all these little probes and pins. This is a release tool for different connectors, and I'm going to find one that represents probably the smallest of all of them, and then you can go ahead and find the other pins, or the other cavities rather, and you can just do the same drag test and work your way all around the harness. Again, if you find any, here's one that's a flat blade, and I've got a couple in here that would probably do a good job for that. The sizing is good, and so that one, that's a good one for this. Okay, I think you get the idea. Also, we're going to look at each of the connectors here on the front and the back side. This is the relay. It's fuel pump ECU relay. And so we'll take this one apart and investigate. There's little latch tabs here that we'll release. So now that I have this apart, I'm going to do a drag test on the terminals. The pins, these here, these spade connectors, I have seen where you've had something plugged in and everything looked okay, but yet the component didn't function and there was a failure. And so by inserting a blade and then pulling on that, doing that drag test, you can just verify that in fact these are making really good contact. And I'm going to look for any corrosion or problems here on this side. So doing a drag test is really the only way to know for sure if you're making good contact, as opposed to just doing a visual. You know, we probably should make up a little kit of like a service kit for some of these things, and maybe if you email us, we'll put together a little service kit that we can send out. So that would be, you know, what we'll do for these things. There's all types of different ones, and you're just going to go through looking at the front, the back, just any issues at all. There are times where I might cut open a little bit of the loom here and then investigate any of these splits. This one is in really good shape, and so I don't suspect there's any problem with it. And the bike had no issues whatsoever, so I'm not going to go terribly in depth, but I'm not going to cut corners either. I'm going to look very carefully at every one of these points, and then do my drag tests on all of these pins. And there was really the only issue on this one, and it's very common on the Austrian bike products is these Molex open type connectors. This is the one that connects to the start kill switch, and this has a hot at all times pair on it, and so very, very common as you wash your bike or just ride it in normal conditions for there to be some of this corrosion that's going to form on these two connector pins here. And that's just, it's basically a low grade, because it's hot all the time, you're constantly having, if you have moisture there, a low grade short in between the two, and it's just the moisture forming, and so you'll get this little corrosion. And there are many, many products out there that will do like a cleanup. I've got two right here, and then you can go and get some type of like electrical cleaner product, and all of them are good. We happen to like this ACF 50, and so our method to clean something like this is we'll just get a bristle brush, and I'm going to spray some of this in there and work that in and scrub it. You could use a toothbrush. There are people who use a copper wire brush or a brass bristle brush. Those are good. All that's a good idea. Really just the key is to get in there and clean all that out and make sure to break it loose, and then you want to flush it away. And you can do the same thing. You'll need to do the same thing with the male side of that connector, but once we've completed that and make sure that that's all clean, then the final step will be to come along and then give it one last spray, and the goal here is to flush all those boogers out. And this is a final, so what I'm doing here with this product is that will be a final, I want that's a sealer, it's a water disperser, and then this is a corrosion inhibitor. And so you can use dielectric, and we've used dielectric and advocated for that for a long time, and that is a great way to go. This, though, this ACF 50, once it showed up on our radar and we heard about it, then we've just pretty much been using it exclusively. And I think that one of the main benefits of that is because it's a liquid, it's going to flow and get everywhere inside of the terminal. And so a good example of that would be if you had a relay. Let's go back to this. So because we've checked this, we'll go ahead and plug this one back in. Okay, and so just as regular routine maintenance, you could come along here and you could spray this in, and it's going to flow and work its way into every part of that mechanical assembly right there. And we even do this on terminals like the ECU, where it's inadvisable to use silicone on an ECU. We're okay with using this spray solution. I want to just push it down in there. ACF 50 is approved for all electrical connectors. It's a military grade product, and there's all types of aviation and aerospace companies that use this exact thing, and that's what really has attracted us to it in the first place. And I have seen failures of systems on bikes where, because this is sealed, and the common thought would be that no moisture is going to get in there, occasionally water does. Water and moisture can get inside of that. And we've seen corrosion on these seal type connectors. So this is a common practice of ours now, and we'll put that in there, and then you want to get all that liquid out, so it just acts as a coating. You could also spray this with a little bit of shop air to blow that out, but we're going to just tap it out, and you can see where a lot of that liquid that was, those drops were in there, and you can wipe all of this off, reconnect it. And I'm going to do that to each and every one of the terminals. This is to the starter solenoid on the bike, and I would either do it here on the bench, or you could do that when it's installed on the bike, but the idea is the same, and you can wipe all this stuff off. Now it'll attract a little bit of dust, and that's fine, and you could reapply this. They say that this has water dispersant properties that are good for about a year. So that's how we will do our harness maintenance on a bike. You could do this with it on the machine, obviously. Our preference is to pull it off on the bench, to look at it very, very carefully, and you can just explore it and examine it a little bit better sitting on the bench. So there you go. I hope that helps somebody else out there when they're doing their deep teardown and bike maintenance. Now, let me just say this, the last thing is electrical system maintenance is a thing. Everyone understands that you should check your valves and do oil changes and air filter checks, and those types of things are well understood. However, there are tons of bikes that have lots of electrical problems out there, and most of those could probably be remedied if the rider just applied some effort and time on the electrical system. And electrical system maintenance is a thing. And also there is the thought that a wire loom is not a lifetime component. The temperatures, think about all of the extreme environments that the wire loom is in. So these are plastic and rubber components, and they are exposed to petroleum products and extreme heat cycles, and all of that takes its toll. Plus there's just stretching and vibration. And so there are varying opinions on how long a wire loom should last, and there are some who think it's a lifetime component, and then for some riders in instances it may last the life of the bike, but for others they will literally replace the harness and the looms as a maintenance procedure. And there are some race teams who will replace it every single race. There are some guys who will replace it like on a Baja Score Series bike. I know of plenty of teams who will replace their harness at least twice a year, so they'll run a new harness through the first part of the series. So there's 4 races, and the Baja 1000 being the last, and they'll replace the new loom. They'll put a new loom in for the 1000 because it's such a high stakes event. Some guys will run it for a year, so your results will vary. But the reality is that the harness can be a wear and tear item and is slated for repair and maintenance on an occasional basis. So just keep those things in mind as you run your bike and you're looking for the ultimate reliability. Electrical system maintenance is a thing. It should be done. And here's some methods and procedures and products that we use to do that. Hope this helps. Like, subscribe, go out, get some adventure.